Childhood conditioning, how that impacts our adult relationships. Childhood conditioning and adult relationships are very connected. So it's kind of fun looking at Google images around relationships and all the different memes and images and pictures and different things. But one thing that's really clear to everybody is that we're all really conditioned around relationships. And part of that has to do with our survival systems as we're children in particular. We have to do pretty much anything to maintain attachment with parents. And as we start to get into puberty and into having romantic relationships and into adulthood, it means a lot how you define yourself in terms of, are you married, divorced, how many times? What does it mean about you? In the inquiries, we have a boomerang inquiry where we look to see what does that reflect back about me. And I think this whole issue of romantic relationships in particular reflects a lot back about ourselves. And it's a really intense territory for deficiency beliefs. So, like with any conditioning, it's in our animal body, our primitive brain and nervous system. We're not always aware of the conditioning that we have. And we're certainly conditioned to believe that if we have a successful relationship, which means for most of us, the kind of dominant ideal, at least, even though it's not the predominant experience, predominant ideal would be a heterosexual or at least a another kind of relationship that's got some of those qualities of commitment, long term, get a house in the suburbs, raise your children. And we looked at a lot of that conditioning a little while ago around Father Knows Best, the Donna Reed show, the Marlboro Man, all of those beliefs that we have about who we should be. And then, of course, that gets so much more complicated when we start to get into adult relationships. And one of the things that I really have noticed in myself when I was 18, I had had such a turbulent time when I was a teenager, and I got married when I was 18 to a guy. I didn't know at the time that I was a lesbian. I look at that now and I can really see how it was kind of a bid for respectability and to be included. And so there's a lot of the social inclusion and social exclusion are operating in this area too. So I thought I'd start with the guys this time. There's a lot of conditioning around all the marketing around what men should bring to a relationship. Some of it is Christian based or not necessarily just Christian, but a lot of it is men have this role, women have this role, men are our protectors. And if you want to be protected, just get into a relationship with a strong guy. And that men shouldn't have a lot of emotional intelligence or a lot of emotional fluency and should be manly. So go to war, be a soldier, don't cry. A lot of that conditioning around what it's like to be in a certain gender, in a gender role, certainly is at play here. Princess culture is appalling and alive and well. I remember when my nieces were really young, they got princess outfits when I think they were 2 or 3. They were walking, but they weren't that old, and it included little high-heeled princess slipper kinda things, you know? It's not my child. I can't I can't control what they do, but I could really see how pervasive it is. And if you look at some of the Disney princesses, I think the one who's a mermaid is Ariel. She changed her body, she left her home, she left her family, and completely redid herself in order to get a relationship. And that messaging comes through really strong and clear in our culture. Makeup, all of the different princess outfits. There's a lot of feminist analysis around this now, but this idea that someday my prince will come and that I will be saved really contributes to that passivity, and it's a little bit more hidden now. And certainly there's a lot more feminist women and men who are feminists as well are bringing people up to have more equality in their conditioning as children. 30, 40 years ago, it was like a woman would go to university to get her MRS degree. And there was a lot of that kind of stuff. Calling your child princess, wonderful other ways to give girls affirmations for strength and resilience and intelligence. There's a lot of interesting images and memes on the internet about the different just the different ideas we have about how we live our lives and how we save ourselves or how we get saved. And then when we're talking about relationships, until fairly recently, maybe 10 or 15 years ago, it wasn't common at all to see positive images unless you were in a heteronormative heterosexual relationship, that the man was more dominant. And Ellen was one of the first ones in the mid 90s who came out and lost her show on TV and a lot of problems. Lily Tomlin, who's an out lesbian now, a lot of Hollywood people came out. Doogie Howser, MD, was actually played by a gay man. And a lot of celebrities have more recently come out and said, yeah, this is who I am. And as that's happened, then that's made it a lot easier for everybody. And I remember when the L word came out, and looking at it now, I can see just how beautiful all those women are. And that's not really the lesbians that I know, that's for sure. Some of whom were physically beautiful, and a lot of us are regular people. I remember at the time the excitement about that because it was one of the first times we'd ever had like a well produced major network show that reflected our lives, even though it didn't reflect them exactly, but still it was a big step forward. And now in the last few years, transgender issues have been getting more coverage and people are starting to understand it more, and to start to have that broadening of our ideas about what a relationship is to be way more inclusive. And a lot of the young kids now, it's opened up so much more space for people to identify themselves in shifting ways of, this is who I feel like I am now, and this is how I'm working in relationship right now, and I'm not thinking that it has to be a certain way. That freedom that we see is so wonderful because I'm excited to see what it'll be like in another 20 or 30 years as that conditioning around gender roles and sexual identity and gender identity all start to, or all continue to crumble. And then I guess the other kind of major category, heterosexual, the ideal in our culture, and then other kinds of relationships, and then being single. So there's articles about this one where that guy is kind of dragging this woman and she's walking away. There's lots of stuff right now about how a lot of older women, not elderly, but older women are just like, I'm done with relationships. I want to just be on my own. And yet the messages that we get are that we're not okay on our own. There's something really wrong with us when we're on our own. And so that contributes to this pressure to be in a relationship that may or may not be really healthy for us or really suitable. So that, yes, I'm single, you're going to have to be amazing to change that. It's kind of where I'm at, I think, right now, where I'm not closed to the idea of a romantic partner. And it's not something that I'm looking for. I'm really happy being single. And then we also get kind of scared into, well, if you're not in a romantic partnership, that must mean that you're lonely, and loneliness is the new smoking, and you must be a loser because you don't have a relationship. And it just really completely discounts all the wonderful friendships and other ways that people connect with ourselves and each other. So I wanted to just kind of cover some of that territory, just to bring our attention to some of the conditioning that we've experienced and certainly that we experience as a culture. So now let's stop and do some inquiry. So the inquiry is going to be different for all of us, of course, because there's different things that are coming up. One of the things that I wanted to look at is again from this structure. So Dan McClintock with the Killing Inquirers came up with this. Over on the left, these are all my conditioned beliefs. And over on the right, there's freedom. And then in the middle is all of our emotional ties, all of the kind of messy stuff. And so what I've got here in the middle is the inquiry piece. So if our conditioned belief is I'm less than without a romantic partner, so that's the boomerang. What does that reflect back about me? So if you were to just stop for a moment and tune into your body and breath and notice what comes up for you around that I am less than without a romantic partner. You can fill in the blanks on what that might mean. And then we might actually look at what do I actually want in a romantic partner? Or do I want a partner right now? Another conditioned belief that I think many of us have is that I better settle for this relationship and try and make it work because there might not be anybody better who wants me. And so often we're in relationships that really aren't working for us. Maybe they did at one time and they're not now, or maybe they never did, but we were just really kind of blind to the complexity of it and all of the things that aren't working because we really wanted to be in a relationship. And children trade authenticity for attachment, and so do adults. And that's a part of what we're working with when we're talking about relationships. And then there's that whole someday my prince will come, and as soon as I meet that someone special, I'll be happy. And that works for men as well. As soon as I meet the woman who I want to marry and have a child with and raise children and have that be our forever partner. And that might be a heterosexual relationship, it might be a gay relationship, a queer relationship. There's all kinds of relationship possibilities. But the initial inquiry that I thought we could kind of stop and work with for a bit is to look into what does that mean about me if I'm not in a partnered relationship. And let's look at it first right now. So notice what's going on in your body. What's the energy in your body? What happened to your breath when you're looking at this? And if you're in a relationship, you might do it as well, what if I was not? What if I left that relationship? What would life be like then? And if you're not in a relationship right now, what does that mean about you? And really from the eyes of culture as well as our own. I'm not in a relationship. What does that mean about me? And it's probably coming up for people, some of the issues that you have or have had in relationship. And a lot of it is around, can I make this work? So we're doing our own work around our own emotional health and the authenticity trade for attachment, our own parts, our own emotional healing from the hurts of childhood. And a lot of the decision around either getting into a relationship or staying in a relationship has to do with our assessment of, can that other person change enough to be who we need? So that might be an element that you're looking at too. What am I willing to trade for attachment? And stay really present in your body with your breath. We're just looking. And as always, just tapping. You can open your eyes, put images on the wall across the room, look at them in a frame, do the focus shifting. Come back to your breath. Really let your breath stabilize you. Feel your feet on the floor. I've traded authenticity for attachment in the past. Where am I at with that right now, either in relation to a particular partner or the possibility of getting into a romantic relationship? And sometimes there are a lot of ideas floating around, words floating around. If it's getting kind of confusing or overwhelming, you could always put them into a collage, kind of see them on the wall across from you as there's a whole bunch of different elements here. Have a look at that and notice the energy in your body. Keep coming back to, what does this feel like in your body as you're looking? Notice your breath. And if there's tight energy or contraction in your body, see if you could sit with it and see, why is that here? Is it trying to tell you something? What does it want? Why is this particular energy shown up the way it has? And you could get more specific as well. It's safe for me to stay in this relationship, or I feel known and accepted in this relationship. And with any reverse inquiry, we're always looking for the no, either some tightness in the body or a no in the mind. Denial of what's really going on is such a problem in relationship because we can't afford to see, and our body will tell us. I feel known and seen in this relationship. What's your response to that? And it might be your relationship with yourself that you're working with. It doesn't have to be with another person. Long, slow breaths. Notice that you're in this moment now, doing an inquiry. Feel your feet on the floor, your seat on the chair. And it often can come back to what does the heart know? If we get out of our head and, we're informed by all the ideas in our head, and it's not like there's something wrong with thought. And as we come into our body, what are we feeling like here? Is there something that you're not seeing that you need to see? Are you hanging on to an idea that this person will change and then it will be okay? And is that actually evidence based, or is that more of a hope or a trade for attachment? So let's take several minutes to sit with what is it that I need to see? And what does my heart know? And if it's helpful, you might be thinking about that structure of conditioning on the left and the freedom on the right. What are the tentacles, the sludgy, slimy stuff that's reaching out from the left? All those ideas about a man and a woman and a relationship and what it means. What would it be like to be free of that conditioning? What could you let go right now and be free? And you might want to bring in different timelines. Do you remember what you felt like as a teenager with all of that peer pressure? Were you in a relationship at the time? What was it like? Did you wish you were? And let yourself kind of land on different times in your life. What were your conditioned beliefs and how were they actually operating then? And how did that roll through to today? How are those still influencing you? We're going to finish in a couple of minutes. And you might even kind of feel into your openness right now to exploring a wide range of friendship and other relationship possibilities. Our most important relationship is with ourselves. And are we on our own side? Are we taking care of ourselves? Are we seeing clearly? Are we in the grip of old conditioning? Sit for a couple of minutes. Notice, what does your heart know? As you're noticing this, really be conscious of compassion, kindness. We all have this conditioning, and we also have the survival level need to be in family relationships, to be in communities. Just to notice, what is your experience right now as you're sitting here? Are you kind with yourself? Are you patient and understanding? We all want to be loved. This is really important. And we all want to be in all kinds of relationships that are safe for us, where we're conscious and authentic and really feel seen and known. This is really important. And make a mental note of things that you might want to follow up on. What came to you during the inquiry that maybe you're seeing in a different way or that you'd like to explore more?